In Mauritius, people continue to grapple with the aftermath of a huge oil spill after a Japanese merchant ship crashed into a reef off the island's southeast coast. With over 1,000 tons of oil spilled, the cleanup operation is a major undertaking. Workers with Poly Eco Group, one of the firms tasked with coordinating the response, are working to clear seaweed from the coastline, home to mangrove forests and endangered species.
What we are currently doing in Rivière de Creole is, since we have removed the oil from the sea surface, we are removing all bulk, all contaminated seaweed and all material that is being contaminated by oil, and then we will proceed accordingly to the methods that will not create any damage to the environment.
And the operation itself is dangerous. 2 sailors died and 2 others are still missing after a tugboat collided with a barge. Tens of thousands of Mauritians have attended demonstrations in the capital Port Louis to express their frustration at the government's response to the spill. Bruno Laurent, a maritime security expert who normally spends his days providing armed escorts to ships, has become a figurehead for protesters in recent weeks.
How is it possible that we can put incompetent people at the head of our country? When you examine it, there's an institutional dysfunction at the very top of the country. That's what's distressing. That's what's, how can I put it, infuriating. And on top of that, there's no humility. There are people who cannot listen. We are all human, we all make mistakes. But I think it is important at a certain point to say, we have failed, but we will take back control, and we are not going to remain arrogant.
Un autre candidat choisi, le professeur Alpha Condé.
To Guinea now, and following months of speculation, the country's ruling party has confirmed that 82-year-old President Alpha Condé will seek a controversial 3rd term in office. Condé pushed through a constitutional reform in March that critics argue was designed to allow him to run for office again. Deadly protests have repeatedly rocked the country since the possibility of Condé running for a 3rd term came to light. Previously elected in 2010 and again in 2015, Condé is now a candidate in elections scheduled to take place on the 18th of October. Sudanese leaders and rebel commanders have agreed a peace deal, a crucial step towards ending 17 years of conflict in which hundreds of thousands of people have been killed. South Sudanese President Salva Kiir, a former comrade to some of the rebels during Sudan's earlier civil war, hosted and mediated the talks.
We do not view this initial signing of the protocols as an end in itself. We view it as the beginning of the commitment by the parties to honor and implement the agreement in the letter and spirit.
Officials said the deal was initialed and not signed in order to leave the door open for 2 key holdout groups to join in a final agreement. And finally to Ivory Coast, where supporters of exiled former President Laurent Gbagbo submitted his candidacy for October's presidential election. Gbagbo, who currently lives in Belgium after being freed conditionally by the International Criminal Court following a trial for alleged crimes against humanity, had been barred from running by the country's Electoral Commission. But his supporters have had other ideas.
Au nom de la plateforme politique, Ensemble pour la démocratie et la souveraineté.
On behalf of the political platform Together for Democracy and Sovereignty, we have submitted the candidacy of our political leader, President Laurent Gbagbo, the father of democracy in Ivory Coast, who we have solicited to be our candidate for the presidential election of October 2020.
À l'élection présidentielle d'octobre 2020.
The country remains scarred by a conflict that erupted after the 2010 vote when Gbagbo refused to hand over power to the victor, current President Alassane Ouattara.
If Ouattara is a candidate, we must also be a candidate. We must let President Laurent Gbagbo return to the country. He must return. He must be president. We are all tired of all that. Why is Ouattara a candidate and the others are not? What quality does he have that the others do not?
Gbagbo, who has not made any public statement about whether he wishes to run again, is living in Brussels pending the outcome of an appeal against the ICC ruling. In the meantime, he can travel, provided the country of destination accepts him. The constitution in Ivory Coast limits presidents to 2 terms, but Ouattara and his supporters argue that a tweak to the constitution in 2016 reset the clock. Gbagbo isn't the only one to have had others submit his candidacy for him. Relatives of the former rebel leader Guillaume Soro, forced into self-imposed exile in France in the face of a long list of legal problems at home, have submitted his candidacy. And former President, 86-year-old Henri Konan-Bédier, who contested the 2010 election, has also thrown his hat into the ring, submitting his candidacy for the October vote.